That's yours. Oh yeah, because I was like this.
Somebody just.
They're adding chairs. Oh, okay, that's Otis. Oh yeah. Okay. So he's on. Yes. Two. I love the way he says it like that.
And also, if anyone was wondering, somebody was supposed to be bringing the jam going. And they are not here. I was let down. Sorry about that. She will be severely beaten. Wow. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. There are some seats down here. I kind of put the speakers in front, but there are some seats if you'd like to move on in. There's a lot of seats up here.
Everyone hold your hand up when there's a spare seat next to you.
Oh, that's pretty good then. Not too much standing.
Down in front.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Absolutely amazing. Turn out. Here we go. So, I'm just going to start by reading Nick's obituary that I put in the LA Times in case anybody didn't see it, but we'll start off by telling the story, I guess. Michael Nick Hodgson, 71, passed away peacefully at his home in Venice, California, on May 4th, 2023. Michael suffered a brain injury as a result of a cycling accident in 2014 and was consequently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2017. Michael was a loving husband to Gillian Hodgson and devoted father to Maudie Ray and Lucian Hodgson, and stepfather for 29 years to Lily Hawkwood. Born in England, Michael graduated from Brighton College of Art in 1974. He then enjoyed a lustrous career as a graphic designer, beginning in London as art director of Harper's and Queen magazine. In 1979, he then moved to Los Angeles, where he founded PhD of Design Office with his friend Clive Piercy. Michael served as president of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Institute of Graphic Arts, AIGA, from 2004 to 2006, and served on the National Advisory Board of the AIGA Center for Sustainable Design. In 2007, he was named an AIGA Fellow, the highest honor awarded by the Institute. A lover of world music, Michael had a radio show called Stepping Out on the famed KCRW. Michael was also a keen cyclist and was deeply embedded in the cycling community, especially the charity cycling group, the Fireflies. Who named him Il Capitano. Michael will be remembered for his exquisite work in the design field, including album covers, books, logos, and environmental signage. Michael's ability to connect with people, his charming, witty personality, and snappy, colourful style will be remembered always. And so, we actually need my program. Thank you. God, I was going to say so much and now I can't even remember what I was going to say. Yeah. Well, no, I have remembered. One thing, thank you. One thing I want to say is thank you to, I just can't name people because I don't want to forget anybody. Everybody knows who they are, and it's actually probably almost every person in this room somehow supported me and Michael and my family from accident to passing in some way. And funny thing actually about Friends is when I was trying to pick a caterer for the event, I got a quote, and it had an awful lot of staff that were going to be helping setting up and things like that. And I said to the caterer, I don't think we need all that staff because my friends are going to help me. And she said, well, in my experience, friends don't always come through. And if they do, they're not always able to do what's required of them. And I said, you don't know my friends. So I just want to thank everybody for everything in the last 9 years. And I think we'll just move on to our speakers. So the first speaker is John Noble. Michael called him Johnny Boy. In fact, when he was in, when he first woke up in hospital, John came into the room when he first uttered his first words. John came into the room and he looked at John and he said, Johnny Boy. So, John, please come up. John is one of Michael's oldest friends.
I've got my folder. It shouldn't take long. That is how Michael started his best man speech at my wedding. And well, I think I should start with it. I met Michael at the registration line at Brighton Art College in 1970. And we were standing there, me, a shy northern lad, him and a vain, southerner from London, very confident. So I'm guessing he started talking to me. And he had a notebook with him, and in the notebook was the names of the tutors for his course, tutors that weren't on his course that he needed to know, third-year students that he might need to know along the way. And I did not know the way to the sculpture department. We were very, very different. But we had a common love of music. And over that we really bonded. Next to the art college was a set of Victorian terrace houses. And in the basement of the first one was the social club, the college. And the students had collectively called it the basement. And on Friday nights they had a club there, which they called the Friday Night Club. Very smart students. And somehow I managed to inveigle myself into DJing at the club. There was like 3 DJs that worked every 5 minutes. And Michael wanted to DJ there, but wasn't really in your room. And he would DJ occasionally, but not that often. So he said to me, we should start our own club. And I said, that's a great idea. He said, we do it on Wednesday nights. I said, that's a great idea. And we could call it the Wednesday Night Club. And he said, no, we won't. We'll call it the Soul Society. And I said, that's a great idea. So we did. And we carried on doing that for 4 years at the art college. Every Wednesday night, Michael and I would DJ in the era of Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. You know, those guys. We were playing James Brown, Curtis Mayfield, all those big hairy students dancing to soul music. It was great. So we did that for my entire college career. And over that we really bonded. We just became very good friends. At the end of college, Michael moved to London, as you said, to go to Hodgson Queen, and I stayed in Brighton to become a bartender. And I eventually moved to London. By the time I moved to London, Michael had moved to California. You know, I think we overlapped for maybe a couple of years. But there was always an open invitation to come here and visit. And so in probably late '79, I came to visit. And Michael then lived in an apartment on 4th and Rose. And it's one of those little apartment buildings that had a little pool in the middle. And I was staying there, and Michael had arranged a photo session. I think Michael was working at Lego magazine at that point. And he'd arranged a photo session. And Philip Dixon was taking pictures of swimwear models around the pool. And they were using Michael's apartment as a changing room. And I thought, wow, this makes a rainy day in London, doesn't it? So I should come out and live here. So a year later, I came out to live here. And I came to stay in Michael's apartment. He then moved to another apartment, and I took over his apartment. He also introduced me to Cy Chen and Raymond Lee, who were the owners of Major D of the then very fashionable China Club on West 3rd Street. And so through that connection, I got a job. So I had an apartment and a job, all because of mine, basically. But as the years went on from living here, we were still friends. But we kind of separated a little bit in the sense that I pursued my career as an alcoholic, and he pursued his as a really great designer, which was frustrated him and probably depressed me. But eventually I got sober, and I think Michael was more happy about me getting sober than I was, which is fair. If there's anybody here who's gotten sober, you know it's not a very happy time. That comes later. But the actual getting there is not that happy. But Michael was very, very happy for me. And in my newfound clarity, to other very good friends, Tom Foden and Deborah Evans, got me into working at the art department on commercials and music videos. And in that capacity, they needed graphics and signage. And so where would I go? I would go to PhD and speak to Michael, who was always very happy to see me. And of course he was always too busy as well. So he would say, well, you know, why don't you go and see Carol? She will help you. Carol was working there for Michael. Age 12. And so I'm going to see Michael when we do these projects, and I'd ask him to do these projects. projects, and then Michael was very persistent about things. He was like, he was very clear about stuff, and he would say, "You should ask Carol out," and I would say, "All right, yes," and then I wouldn't, and then he would say, and I'd go, "Well, sure." So I asked Carol out, and that is how he became the best man at Carol and I's wedding. And now, 23 years later, we have two wonderful children. I have a wonderful life. And none of this, and I've thought about this quite a lot in the last, obviously in the last 10 years or so, that none of this would have been at all possible. None of this would have happened, nothing at all, if I had not met Michael at Brighton Art College in 1970. And if we had not done that, Michael was the best friend that anyone could ever have. If anybody has a friend like Michael in this room, they should consider themselves extraordinarily lucky. I know I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Our next speaker probably had more of an influence on Michael and really kind of launched him into his KCRW career, which Michael was incredibly proud of. And so our next speaker is, as I've written here, revered KCRW music director from 1979 to 1991. It's Tom Schnobel.
This is going to be. Can everybody hear me okay? I should know how to use a microphone. So yes, I was lucky enough to be the first music director of KCRW beginning in 1979, July 17th to be exact. And not long after that, this guy used to just come over. The Doors, we were in a middle school, John Adams Middle School in Santa Monica. And this guy would come over, and he was kind of very quiet, very stylish. He wore little beaded earrings, and I was like the only guy wearing beaded earrings at the time. And he also had really long hair. But he would come in and he wouldn't say anything. He would just hang around, especially if we had like an African guest or a reggae guest. And so he was hanging around the station. I remember going over to his 4th Street home, and he made this swordfish, and he coated it with mayonnaise, and it just tasted so good. I thought, God, he's a master chef. This is absolutely wonderful. So I didn't know that he got his green card by working for Playgirl magazine, which he never told anybody about, but that's how we got here. Michael, he loved music so much, but I saw him at so many African concerts and tropical Cuban concerts and everything. He never danced. He just sat and watched. He just sat and watched, but you could sort of tell that there was this intense thing going on inside of him that was more powerful than the people out on the dance floor. That's how much he loved music. So he was hanging around at the right place and he met all the KCRW people. It was really kind of inevitable that Michael would get a show, and since I was in charge, I helped make that happen. Michael played absolutely great music on Steppin' Out. He was not the most effusive announcer on the air, Because again, it's kind of like the dance floor. He was just kind of like intensely burning it all up inside, but he just loved it so much. Michael had such impeccable taste. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures, like the picture down here. I mean, stylish guy from the get-go. So stylish. And even if you go to the Hodgson residence, I call it Deuces Wild, on Bernard Avenue 222 anyway, you can see all the design, you can see, you know, this incredible taste, beautiful taste that Jill has moved forward. He was a great selector. I hired him as a designer because there was nobody else who had his sort of taste. He also wanted to do stuff with me. So for Stolen Moments, he got David Byrne. He was very tight with, so David Byrne wrote the foreword. Michael designed the book. Later on, there was Rhythm Planet, another book which went to Universe Books, Rizzoli. Michael did all the design on that. He designed my business card. He designed the card that I had when I was at A&M Records. There was no other place to go. Michael's a funny guy. He used to come by, I lived nearby him. He bought a Plymouth Valiant. It was a little kind of a tan car. It was one of these cars that was made by the Chrysler Corporation during the Vietnam War, and it had to be built to military specs. So people buying cars of that 60s vintage, the cars would never fall apart. The engine would never fall apart. There is a person in this room, a very close person to me who I work with, who had a Dodge Dart, and she refused to put any oil in it because she wanted her dad to buy her a new car. And she kept driving and driving and driving, and the car never, ever died, with no oil in there at all. He also did the design of the California design, Living in a Modern Way, which I still have, and I always will have on my coffee table because it is just such a stupendous book, and it's a book that everybody should have. So Michael was one of a kind. I love him dearly. I was once actually an amateur cyclist in a club too, so I admired his strength as a rider, and also the Fireflies and the love that he had for that group. So I feel a lot of love, and I feel it's really beautiful to see all of you. Thank you so much, Jill, for inviting me to talk. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
And now we're going to have Tony Manzella, who has known Michael since he was 15. He actually met Michael through his dad, Rich, who had, Tony's dad was Michael's mailman in Venice for years. And I think the story goes, are you going to tell this story? Okay. The story goes that right. The story goes that basically Rich, Tony's dad, said, oh yeah, so you're a designer. Yeah, my son's into that kind of thing. Maybe he could come by one day and just check it out. And so I think you went by at 15 and 19, sorry. And then I guess the rest is history, and maybe we're going to hear about it. But Tony is, as it says in the program, he's also godfather to Lucian, and my youngest, our youngest, and dear, long time family friend. Come on, Tony.
Everybody, it's fitting that I'm in my cycling gear, kind of getting a little gross from the sweat, just because some of my memorable visits was to the Topanga House, and I'd be out on a ride and go, I should stop by and see the Hodgsons, and I'd stop in there, and we'd hang out and have some food, and it was just a great mood. I was in the middle of a ride, they were just home, and I was able to stop in and say hi. So it makes total sense that I'm here today talking about Michael, and I'm in that post-ride kind of feeling that we all the writers here, know so well. I have some words that I just wrote down about Michael. I was so nervous about this talk, mostly because I have, you have so much to say, and I think I was more nervous about how I was going to condense it down to just saying kind of the things that are the essence of my relationship with somebody who changed my life. But friendship, mentorship, like-minded, something I call cross-pollination, which is, for me and Michael, he was much older than me, but he obviously showed up in my neighborhood and wanted to connect. Like when I hear Tom talk about world music, I think Michael was kind of experiencing life that way. Like, I want to be part of this scene. He obviously came to Ocean Park, where I grew up, and he had this Valiant, which I guess my dad would work on during his mail route. Like that's one of the stories, is my dad was out delivering mail. My dad worked at a gas station, and next thing you know, you got a mailman under the hood, diagnosing, some issue with this car that was a bulletproof car, and that's why probably my dad could fix it on the spot. But I think that's also why Michael gave me the chance to work at PhD. I didn't have any experience. I didn't go to Art Center. I didn't go to Otis. And Michael was like, this kid should work at PhD. There's something about him. And I think that was my connection to the neighborhood. But the 15-year-old story is really about going boogie boarding with Michael, which I can barely remember, but I was a boogie boarder before I was a surfer. And Michael wanted to go boogie boarding with us, and my dad had this 1952 Chevy pickup truck, which Michael probably loved because he loved Americana and old cars. And we got into my dad's truck. We drove down to El Porto, and a little bit of a segue as I think about this story more is Michael and Clive wanted to call PhD the Knowledge, which is this, in London, if you're going to be a taxi driver, you have to pass this test called the Knowledge. And I think about that word, the knowledge, like almost daily. And I associate it with Michael. And I think the beautiful thing about Michael was, like going back to cross-pollination, and he introduced me to the Bauhaus, which was this school where it was about having like-minded people crossing over with their creativity. Like an architect should talk to a designer, designer should talk to an artist, and it's this beautiful thing that can happen in life as well. And I think going to the mentorship thing, we went boogie boarding together, and I was a better boogie boarder than Michael. So I had something to share with him, to give Michael. But then years later, he gives me something that completely changes my life. So it's like we were handing off this baton of knowledge to each other. And I think that can happen all throughout life. Like, you can have a kid, and you know you need to take care of this kid, but at the same time, that kid's giving you back something that you needed to experience. And it's not a burden. It's this beautiful back and forth of information and culture. And yeah, that is just, I know it's kind of deep and philosophical, but that's how I think about Michael. I think we weren't like John. Obviously he was young, he was seeing Michael all the time. I met Michael I was young and he was much older, but he gave me all of this information, but we also saw that we could each give something to each other. And I think it's like a transcendence, I guess, or a spiritual friendship, to be connected to somebody. Like every day there's something in my life, whether I'm at work and I'm talking to somebody about printing. If an Ian Dury song comes on and I'm like, I worked for this guy Michael and he was friends with that guy. Like that kind of Michael thing happens to me every day. My favorite music, like when Massive Attack comes on, And I've said this before, like, you can't just quantify that or boil it down to, yeah, Michael and I used to hang out on these days or go to lunches. It's just so much deeper. It's like every kernel of who you are goes back to this person who gave me, I always say gave me this chance, but he kind of gave me that chance based on this prior experience that I had as a 15-year-old. And creatively, like, that so wasn't on my radar. I remember my mom, every Christmas, we would get a postcard from Michael. And my mom would say, who is this guy? This card is so weird. I don't understand. And it was like Peter Tosh, stepped and repeated across with a broken font, you know, and it was like, and now I have that card and I'm like, oh, he was sending out a piece of design, but my family didn't understand what design was. But then full circle, 30 years later, my whole company is based on design and understanding process. And one of my earliest experiences at PhD was, I had this little car called a Subaru Justy, and we called it Just Enough. It was like a motorcycle. And I think I was at PhD for like a week, and Michael's like, Jim Bleckman, I think, was one of his clients, chiropractor. He's like, this sign maker totally messed up this sign. They used the wrong font. And I'm like, the wrong font, it looked right to me, of course. It was like Garamond, which I had no idea what Garamond was at the time. We loaded this sign up in my Subaru Justy, and we drove down to the sign maker with this Feldman or Schwartz glass. And he starts unloading on this guy about the serif being the wrong shape. And to this day, I know what he was talking about. It was Perpetua, which is a sharp serif, and they had used Garamond, which was like a rounded serif. And he said, I could have given you a piece of film positive to make this be exactly right, but instead you guys you said, we got this, we're fine, and they obviously used a default serif font. And these are the things Michael makes me carry around now every day, because that's who I work with now. Michael gave me these tools, this pathway, and something in me, some kind of wiring in me said, this is your jam. Like, you want to be a part of this community, but I could have lived my whole life and not known about that doorway. And Michael opened those doorways for me. The sheet is completely useless because I really did not even talk about any of that stuff. I had broken this down into, like, knowing Michael through Venice. You guys already heard about that. PhD life. One funny story about PhD. I guess one of the downsides to being a skater and a surfer from Ocean Park was that I really didn't understand the aesthetic of a design studio, but I was supposed to answer the phone, PhD, and Michael and Clive one day come up to me and they're like, we need to talk to you, and it was about how I was answering the phone. I was answering the phone like I was at a skate shop, and they're like, you know, and it became so clear to me years later because my clients were design studio. Hello, Reverb, how can we help you? And I was like, wow. I was answering the phone at PhD, but again, I think Michael was like, this is kind of cool. We're breaking the mold of music. We're breaking the mold of design. Like, that's what Michael wanted. He wanted to see people that were passionate come together to create something new and fresh. And he knew that that was his life, like looking at his notebooks. Those are the notebooks of like an artist, like scraps of paper, visuals. Like, he taught me to see things. Like, I didn't care about a scrap of design that was on the ground when I walked by, but now I can see those things and go, that's cool. That's garbage, that's cool. And Michael, once again, gave me that. I still don't answer the phone correctly, but that's okay. And then lastly, and this is what another, I don't want to say confusing, but my dad and I got into cycling, and I would be ready to go on a ride. My dad would show up 5 o'clock. I'm supposed to leave. We had a goofy inter-office mail thing called Snap Mail, and Michael would send me something at about 4:55 that said, "Toby, can you call me Toby?" I don't know why. But I never really asked him. I just said, "Okay, my name's Toby." Toblerone, the chocolate. I don't know what came first, Toby, my name, or Toblerone. But I'd get a Snap Mail notice about 5 minutes before I needed to leave that I needed to send out a file for film. And I had to write up a README, because back then you had to do things like that, like fill out, write reading emulsion down, write reading emulsion up. But I got really good at it because I knew I needed to leave in 5 minutes, but I also knew what all of those things meant. But little did I know that I was rushing out to ride mountain bikes with my dad. But years later, Michael and I would reconnect, but me as, once again, kind of the mentor in cycling. So it was like this weird mentorship of me, the boogie boarder, Michael, mega mentor as the creative guide, and then me, once again, kind of introducing him to something he did love, cycling, but coming back full circle. And then now I'm also this kind of like, I guess, median line between the cyclists that knew Michael, who know me, and the designers and the creative people that knew Michael, that still know me, because my business is about creative things. I just want to end with 2 things that, once again, I think about, kind of a quote. Art is long, life is short. I think about Michael a lot, because if you commit yourself to fashion, design, art, you'll be thinking about that until the day you pass. And Michael taught me that that's something, an endeavor you can pursue. And then lastly, and this is just something I think about all the time, I rode a tandem with Michael for a while when he was well enough to be on a tandem bike going 30 miles an hour on PCH. But he would reach over and whisper in my ear, "I love you, Toby." And I never thought that day would come, but it did. And that's it.
So our next speaker is someone that Mick met professionally, and then they just struck up a friendship and became a friend of the family, and was an absolute rock for me when Mick was in hospital. He would, how do I describe you, Joe? The diplomat. I mean, I don't know. He's a guy who gets things done in the most diplomatic way. He would sit in on all the meetings with the doctors at hospitals, and he's just stuck around and stuck through it. And it's Joe Coriarty. Where are you, Joe Coriarty? What?
He's okay.
He's okay. He's going to get checked out.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Okay, well, I basically told you the story of Joe. So hopefully, he's going to be great and walk through the door. Okay, so the next speaker on the list, again, someone who is a professional comrade of Mick's, also became a client of mine. I'm a hairdresser, by the way, that kind of client. But, and so I've become very, very close with Augustine. I enjoy he's just so interesting, and artistic and philosophical. I'm always talking to people about, you know, things that he's said to me, enlightened me about the world, evolution, space. I mean, I don't know, the guy's like, he's into everything. But anyway, this is Augustine Garza.
I hope Joe is okay. An interesting and relevant sight from up here, you know. Very much appropriate. A lot of color, people from all circles, and it really resembles to me what Nick was about. And I, like you, feel, you know, the love in this room. You know, the 80s was an incredible time to be in Los Angeles. I mean, it still is. It always is. But the 80s was particularly intense for creative people. There was a lot going on. You know, the music industry was just on fire. The entertainment industry was doing incredible things. Great architecture. There was April Ryman exploding everybody with her beautiful graphic design. There were great things going on. But something that was particularly interesting, I thought, there were a lot of small, very entrepreneurial boutique design firms sprouting in Los Angeles at the time. And one of them was, of course, PhD. And I have a little bit of a funny story. I was telling my friend Jane Kobayashi, who's sitting here. She and her partner had a furniture design company that was very successful. And they do just absolutely beautiful work. And David called me and said, hey, you know, we're doing this beautiful piece of furniture. And we are looking at branding it, designing a brochure, and doing the whole works. And I started savoring that. You know, I said, boy, here I go. I'm going to get a really nice job with my dearest friends. So I'm thinking of hiring PhD. Have you ever heard of them? And I said, no. Yes, but no. Because I'm a designer too, you know, and I'm your friend. I didn't say that. But in any event, that afternoon, I thought to myself, boy, you know, I got to go meet Nick Hodgson. I think that, you know, that sounds, if David and Jane are sending a project to them, because they're very good designers as well, you know, I think there's something interesting going on here. So I did go see Nick. I don't remember exactly how I got an appointment to see him, but I went into PhD very formally, armed with envy and intimidation. And I was received by Nick. Clive wasn't there. And we sat down, we talked for a little bit. And I couldn't understand the word he was saying because it's English, you know, and I'm Mexican, and there was like a real difficulty there. But I could see in his smile and in his eyes a certain kindness and accessibility that I came to know of Nick. Eventually, we became very good friends. He was a gentleman, and he was always open to listening to ideas, and I mean, I'm sure he was very self-critical, I'm sure, but he was very demanding of what he expected from people, but with great respect. I know it because he became president of AIGA in, I believe it was 2000, let's see, I wrote it down here, 2004. And I was somehow in the network, but I wasn't involved with the AIGA. And for those who don't know what AIGA is the American Institute of Graphic Arts, is the largest and oldest professional design association in the world. It's an important organization, and Mick was very involved with them at the time, and he invited me to participate. So anyway, you know, we spent quite a bit of time getting familiar with the table, and frankly, I got to a place where I said, you know, what do you want from me? Because, I mean, you know, I want you to be president of AIGA because I have 1 year left. I said, okay, all right, let's explore that. He shared his spreadsheets with me, and I have to tell you, those spreadsheets looked exactly like his design. Neat, organized, precise, clear. Every number made sense. I mean, the guy was really on top of it. He was an extraordinary leader, and very inspiring leader too. And I was really intimidated. I said, you know, I don't know if I can run. I can't add. So I don't know if I can do this. He goes, oh no, you know, it's you'll be great for it. You know, just help me out. So I stuck it out for a year. When he left, he had really shown me how to do it, and I was always very grateful to him. One of the interesting dimensions about Mick is that he never let go. He never let go of an objective. He had an idea and he stuck to it to the very end. The day that he passed on the baton for me of the AIGA, he said, you know what? There's one thing that you always have to remember about this organization. Keep people together. That was his thing. You know, make sure, now that I see the fireflies, and I see many of old friends, you know, that have been, I mean, you met, you know, when you were 15, right? Wow. I mean, I want a friend like that. I think it's great. But that is a beautiful sign of the kind of, you know, mission-oriented and objectivity of Michael that I always appreciated. I would like to, you know, imagine that Mick would live in all of our hearts. I mean, certainly, you know, he's going to live in the hearts of his beautiful daughters. But I have to say, he was a lucky man, and all of us who know Jill can attest to that. Thank you for making me part of this celebration.
Moving on. Next up is Michael Maltson. Michael is as I wrote here, distinguished architect in Los Angeles, but he is also a long-time friend of Michael's before I came around, I think, and a real, Michael and his wife Amy and their children are great friends of the Hodgson family as well. So come on.
Being a designer, for Michael, that idea rose beyond personal vocation. Life as a designer was nothing less than the most noble way of being. It defined so much of who he was, what was important to him, and how he related to the world. The poet, William Carlos Williams, once answered the question of what is poetry by writing, "It is difficult to get the news from poems, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there." And I think Michael would have insisted that a similar thing should be said about design. That while, as a designer, there is a fundamental importance in bringing things into the world that have utility, there is, at the same time, a greater responsibility for what we make in order to uplift and bring meaning and beauty to the life we are all moving through together. Black, orange, and pink. Black first. For all of the openness and inquisitiveness in Michael's personality, he was also unbending when it came to certain rules, whether it was the rules of cycling or the rule for a particular graphic convention. Certain things were not meant to be transgressed. Once, I told him I was buying a black suit, and he asked, why would I do that? Unless, of course, I had a funeral to go to. And even more importantly, with a black suit, how would I ever wear brown shoes? To which, of course, I did not, and still do not, have a satisfactory answer. Orange, the color of optimism. It's the color I most associate with Michael, especially when I'm remembering how a smile filled with conviction would appear across his face as he proposed something I really didn't think we could do, but he knew we would. It's said that pink symbolizes love, innocence, and joy, all of which might be true. But for Michael, I think it was the color of freedom. Freedom from the conventions and preconceptions that are always grabbing at us, holding us back. And he wore and rode that color out in the world with a kind of contrarian's gusto. Finally, letters and kerning, which is a word I learned from him. I had just finished putting address numbers up next to the front door at our house. Michael, Jill, and their kids were arriving about that same time for one of our regular family dinners together. I came out to say hi, but he said instead, the spaces between all the numbers are wrong. I got over that. And of course, he was right. But ever since then, I've never looked at words in the same way. Michael left many legacies. I learned many things from him during our long friendship. But the one, I think, that says everything about him, the one that I still depend on, is that letters are important, but pay most attention to the profound beauty of the spaces in between.
And now we've got a whole bunch of people coming up. We're getting towards the end now. So I'd like to invite up the Fireflies. I'm not gonna, they can introduce themselves individually, just to say a few words each. Michael just loved these guys. I mean, this was, you know, I was very much in competition with our marriage, family life, and cycling with the Fireflies. So, come on.
Behind me, I just wanted to say it's amazing to see all these faces in this room. It's just, again, as mentioned, so full of love and full of joy for a life well lived. And now my speech has disappeared. I was made to talk first amongst this group, and I promise not to talk too long. Yeah, Alistair put together a little slideshow. Everyone contributed photos, and there you go. Nick had a profound effect on the Fireflies. He invented the discipline, safety, a training program. He created camaraderie. He created friendship, and he made the Fireflies a really special place to be and to belong to and be a part of. The club and the ride have evolved from those days, but he that evolution is all because of him. And we think of him constantly and all the time. He was our captain, and we gave him that respect. But in turn, he gave us an enormous amount of respect back. He brought us together, and he gave us the chance to be together this morning, which unfortunately ended with Joe crashing, and I know he'll be fine. But it was amazing and emotional for all of us to see the Sea of Red jerseys and to be a part of that. So his gifts keep giving, even though he's not here with us. I'm going to be overshadowed by all of the lovely emails and texts that he sent. He treated us all as trusted friends, and he had very individual and special relationships with every single one of us, which was amazing considering how many of us there are. I personally was deeply grateful to find someone, as I was a brand new cyclist who really had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't grow up riding a bike. I came to it at 50 years old. And he would not only yell at me to stop cross-chaining and tell me what tires to put on my bike because I had clearly done it wrong. He also really gently rode me up all these Malibu hills, and really hills I had no right to be on. And the whole time he would just tell me these stories about his lovely family and how amazing they were and his childhood. And suddenly I'd be on top of a hill that I never thought I could ever climb. I'm just going to tell one short story about our friendship, and that was one Friday morning early in our friendship. It was pouring down rain in Silver Lake, and since I had to drive all the way to Santa Monica for a ride, I was dubious that if I got there, there would be anybody who showed up. So I texted him and said, "Will this ride really be on?" And he immediately texted back and said, "Toughen up." And then he said, "You must be joking. I'll see you at 6:30 a.m. So in the pouring rain, I drove for an hour from Silver Lake to Santa Monica, and Nick and I sat in the parking lot with no one else. And we had a good laugh, but we did get soaking wet, and then we went to have a coffee, and after all, there is rule number 5, and we all need to pay attention to it. Of course, after the accident, everything changed, but it didn't change him in the sense that his humor was always there. He always respected his friends and demanded respect back. His generosity was still there, and he always talked about how much he loved his family and how important they were to him. And, of course, his bicycle. He never stopped talking about that. We always discussed the tour and music and riding bikes and the children. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jill for sharing Michael with all of us so generously, and about how much support you gave him and how you did it with such grace. It was really beautiful to watch. She's the most generous and strong person that I know, and I just am in awe of you every time I see you. I'm really honored to have known Mick. He touched my life profoundly and permanently, and I'm grateful to have shared him with all of you in this room. And I just wanted to finish by reading a poem by Maya Angelou. When great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always, irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration, and our senses restore, never to be the same. They whisper to us, they existed, they existed. For we can be and be better, for they existed.
I'm Alistair. I'm also English. I'm also a graphic designer, so you can imagine Mick and I bonded pretty well. Mick taught me how to ride a bike. By the way, I went through every email he sent me, and I pulled out the funny ones. I was saying this to Lucian early on. I pulled out the funny ones that I could show it in a public forum. There are a lot more filthy. Some with pictures, aren't there, Rainey and Sam? They are quite disgusting. That's things you might not know about me. All right. Mick taught me how to ride a bike, not like how my dad taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to really ride a bike. Riding a bike, not just with my legs and my lungs, but with my head and my heart. Especially my heart. He was really insistent about that part. To love the freedom that a bike gives you, to get away from your spouse and family for hours on time. No, that's my wife isn't here, else she'd kill me. To love the freedom that it gives you, to love the Santa Monica Mountains, to love the weird tan lines. Oh my God, did he have weird tan lines, even for a cyclist. Very sharp. And especially the coffee shops. To love all those coffees with him over the years. We followed him everywhere. I followed him everywhere. I followed him like my life depended on it, because my wife was mad that I was out for 7 hours on a Sunday morning and the afternoon, and she was going to kill me. I suppose we should also tell you why we called him El Capitano. Capitano, I can't pronounce anything. It was out of the love. It was because it's Italian, and because us cyclists love anything the French and Italian, because that's the motherland of all of the cycling. He was our road captain. He taught us how to ride. He taught us where to ride in the Santa Monica Mountains. And we still teach that to the cyclists that we recruit and make all this weird culty thing to like raise all this money. And we still teach every single lesson that Mick taught to us, to all of the 400 people in the Los Angeles cycling communities on the Fireflies list. What am I going to say?
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm another Firefly. I'm gonna pass on some messages from the world. Michael rode with the Fireflies and became a good friend to many of us. And the Fireflies group is global, and that meant that Michael met lots of people from around the world. Michael and I met cycling and became fast friends through both being English, both loving football. We had the same football team, both being into design. He got me into wearing Paul Smith socks. His sock game was very strong. We've all got it. But here's a message from the London Fireflies from Ben Hampshire, and I'm going to read it out for him. We met Mick as a rider, and he quickly became a friend. The Fireflies at that time were a small crew on the West Coast, and we needed him, I think, as much as he needed us. He amused himself constantly with our deficiencies, as you know, he helped all of us become a better rider because of him. But he made us better riders, designed beautiful kits, told very long stories, and always showed up. Often after the Friday morning ride, he would come back to Ben's house in Venice for a boiled egg for breakfast. And from Ben, we still have a boiled egg on Friday mornings, and we still tell stories about our friend Mick for years to come. He was a one-off. Our lives and our rides were all better for knowing him. That's from Ben, also known as Lord Hampshire.
Hi everybody. Good? Yes? My name is Eric Travis, and I met Mick in 2011 when I joined the Fireflies. He made the jersey this year. And the day I showed up, I could tell this guy was in charge. I'll probably cry before this is done, but there were leaders to the group, but Mick clearly had the respect of the people in this group. And he kept us, as you heard, very orderly fashion. I was new to it, and I made some mistakes. And I received a few talkings too, in a kind of gruff, kind of stern, kind of curmudgeonly way. My favorite, I remember, cruising along, and he pulls up, Eric,
if you continue to weave left and right on the bike, I will never ride with you again.
And so I watched, and so I learned, and I got accepted into this group. And every Thursday or Friday morning, I get an email. Here's the route. We're going to meet on Sunday, 7 o'clock, to Penny Canyon. Here's the route. Who's in? Who's out? Talk to me. And I think Augustine, you really nailed it. Keep people together. This is what Mick was really good at. As I joined that group then, I can count on that message, that Friday ride, seeing all these familiar faces that are good friends now, that Sunday ride, that cadence, that rhythm, that dependability. That's hard work. And that was one of the things Mick was really, really beautiful at. And you could tell that he valued us. He valued our community. And so on the bike, just like it's been said that Mick is very stylish, but on the bike there are certain rules that need to be observed. There will always be a cycling cap under the helmet. Deep tans, very important, sharp tan lines, gloves, and at the leg, yes. A small gold hoop is preferred, a chain perhaps with a medallion that dangles, jerseys zip down to just so. Pink vintage cycling jerseys are very important, Italian preferable. And in fact, like it's been said, everything Italian is better than pretty much everything else. Colnago bicycles, of course, being the pinnacle of that mountain, except for one instance in a bike lockup, a Colnago bicycle, an Italian bike frame with Japanese Shimano parts bolted onto it, not to be tolerated. And that rider is very suspect, clearly not a Firefly. And probably my favorite memory. This is the angriest I've ever seen in Hodgson. We're riding along together, and we pass two recumbent bicycles. For the flat ones, and please forgive me if anybody in here rides one, the flat kind, you kind of pedal like this. I've never seen him so mad. Like, he took it personally. It was a personal insult. He was like spitting mad. Like, my God, how can you take the classic design geometry of a racing bicycle and turn it into this idiotic, moronic machine? And it was as if I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. If you have insulted cycling, and if you have insulted good design, you have insulted Mick Hodgson. And so we got to ride together, ride from San Francisco to LA together a lot. It was beautiful. But sometimes you pair up and ride one-on-one, and in those moments, that's when you got to really kind of, that gruff demeanor might drop, and you got to hear a little bit more of what's going on with Mick. Like, I met him when I was in my 40s, and he was in his late 50s, and he would get very philosophical. He was aware. He was closer to the end of his career than the beginning. What had he done? What might he still do? Talked a lot about his family. But those are the moments that I got to meet a kinder version of him, a sweeter version of him. And you could tell he valued these people, he cared about us. And when you have a group that you value, that you keep together, that's being of service. Mick was of service to our family because he loved us and he cared for us. And that's a hard thing to find when you're a man. We were mostly men at that point in that group, but when you're a man of a certain age, it's harder to make new friends. And Mick really valued us for that. And that weekly cadence, that monthly cadence of him keeping us together was beautiful. And when he went down, it was awful. But we all of us got to be there for him and help a little bit and support a little bit and show a little bit of that moment. And I'm really grateful to have that opportunity. And so how I'm going to remember Mick is I'm going to remember him one day in 2012 up on GMR, riding along, sun on our faces, wind in our backs, beautiful day, feeling strong, a fun ride down the hill, and a cup of coffee afterwards and talk about how awesome we are. It was really wonderful. So I know that all of you have had the chance to really know Mick in your parts of your lives, and I'm sure you think you have the best part of him. But I'm going to be a little selfish, and I'm going to say that I think that he was at his best with us. I think that Mick was at his best with his friends, cruising down the road, carefree with us. And I'm certain that we are better. We are better because of him.
Hi, I'm Michael Raimondi. I started writing with the Fireflies in 2004, so a long time. I met Nick in 2009, where he invited us all to Paul Smith's store on Melrose. He was a friend of his. And there was this little known brand called Rafa that was going to be showcased there. And Mick convinced me that $350 for a bright orange rain jacket was probably the best decision I could ever make in my life. So I did that. Sam nicknamed me Caltrans after that.
My biz.
But we bonded over that, and you saw one of the emails that Nick sent me. When he was designing jerseys, I think this was the first one, 2011, he would sneak me a PDF beforehand and say, this is the jersey, look at it, love it, remember it, throw this away. If you show it to anyone, I'll come to your house and I'll kill you. In a weird way, it kind of personified the little bond that we had. We bonded over fashion and design in some ways, which will make something like your life. But it was his superpower that when he turned his gaze on you, you felt special, and you wanted it, and you wanted to be a part of his team. And even though I had been with the Fireflies for basically from the beginning, we were just this ragtag bunch of guys that wanted to ride bikes until we met Mick, and then he brought order and design to us. And I went through my emails because Alistair asked me to look for funny things, and I had 2,200 emails. And almost all of them said in or out, and my response was in or out. There was nothing really dramatic about them. They were just like straight to the point of, this is where we're meeting, this is what we're doing, are you in or out? But no one else did that ever before for us. It was just a bunch of guys that figured out we're going to ride this day or we're not going to ride this way. Nick brought us into the future as a riding community and as a real force for good, if I can say that. It sounds pretentious, but I feel like we are. We started raising real money when Nick got us organized and when we turned into a real charity cycling club. And I wasn't going to tell the story, but I will. I was riding almost every ride with him because that was the other superpower he had, is you didn't want to disappoint him because somehow then you thought maybe you were not going to be on his good side anymore, and you wanted to be on his good side. So my blades were always shaved and my glasses were on the other side of my straps, like nothing was wrong. And that terrible day, I woke up and my wife rolled over and she said, just go back to bed today. And I never ever do that. And I wasn't there when it crashed. And not that I would have done anything about it, but I wish that I was there. And I'm sorry that I wasn't. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man that changed me profoundly and changed us as a group profoundly. And it sounds gross in these times, but I love these people like my family. And I loved him like he was my family, and I miss my captain.
First of all, I don't need this. I do need this, and I see why politicians need teleprompters because they don't have to look anywhere. But you shouldn't. Nick spoke to us. hear me or? Yeah, maybe? Oh, there's a live stream, okay. Sorry. How do you honor a man who honored us? You're gonna hear some thematics that sound similar. Because we have similar stories, whether you're part of Fireflies or you're not part of Fireflies. It's called experience. Experience with a person, experience with people. But I think the biggest spoiler alert right now is if anyone hasn't watched Succession, I told them. Just hang on. I will try. Clearly, everyone has different types of relationships, and I met Nick a bit later in life. Just happens that way. And although I was the youngster, he was fast and fierce, knowing exactly what to say, whether it be sharp or witty. It was always dry humor. That's O-U-R. My introduction, and just as important, starting the Fireflies was through Hampton, Hampshire. I was a soloist back in the day, which started with long distance running and triathlons and all that, yes, when I was a kid. But Ben brought me in and Mick got me hooked. I wrote a lot, probably too much, as you all pointed out. But I loved it. And in my naivety, I just wrote, hoping one day I might be able to do a tour. And all those years of training and finally doing tours would culminate with Nick and I, a few others occasionally, riding through the winter, what we call the off-season as Fireflies, just the two of us, sometimes cold and miserable and wet, but it was fucking good. And there was Fly Day Mandy, everyone meeting at 14th and Olympic to go up and back, people drinking coffee. I didn't drink it, I just sat around. As we were climbing the hills, he would sternly talk to me, asking if I was going to focus on the ride or just talk on the phone the whole time. I would, of course, say I was almost done with the conference call, and there was at least 2 or 3 more I had to be on the phone with, but I just kept going, and he would just pipe back with, "Don't worry, I'll just be here sucking air by myself." And most won't remember, but there were many years when I rode and trained and trained and trained, hence all the winter riding. Quite a few people thought I had ridden the tour, but no, I hadn't. I had to cancel days before starting in 2010, days before starting in 2011. And that felt like one of the hardest calls to make, to Hamps, to Farhi. It felt like I was letting all these riders down. I wanted to be there. And that feeling, I wanted to be there. But finally in 2012 was my year. And everyone knows, if you're a rider, about riding in the back and what Firefly stand for. That being in the back is actually being in the front. It's where you learn and grow. That's where I received all my advice. Many riders on their first tours, how I all wanted to do was make sure that I knew everyone, and well by the end of it. And that, as well as many miles in the saddles, was created these bonds across so many people. Dee Dee would always wonder what we did on the bikes, because I would come home after hours of riding and barely have anything about, situations or what's going on in the families. And that's just because we just rode, we just talked, we just did. We just wanted to be. And the simple fact is, we just wanted to enjoy ourselves. And if anyone knows me now, I'm the first one to talk about all the details of my life. I'll sit on the back, I'll wait, and do whatever it takes. That's a caution to anyone who wants to ride with me now. Careful, be ready to talk. I have great memories of Nick, when I can actually remember them. I'm old now, and I love saying that, because I wasn't always. And it's interesting, because I look around and I looked down and I went, are we here because this was made by Paul Smith? I was like, wait, hold on. And I'm looking at Eric's back pocket, and he's got Mick in his back pocket, and all these things that happen, all these things that we know about, all these things that we take with us are so important. And one of the best memories that I had was writing with you the first time. Sorry, writing with Lucy. And I was trying to play it cool, like it was no big deal, but it was huge for me. Thinking about how one day I might get to write with my voice. I protected her, and I was just like, how do we protect this writer right now? How do we take care of her? How do we guard her? Watching her kind of slip in and around and then becoming the writer that she became was amazing. Then some shit happened. I don't remember the day or when it happened. Clearly I've needed to block it out. I just remember the feelings and the moments of the then and now, and all the years in between, and how it hits you at different points and times and levels, and the overwhelm and the sadness. I remember trying to stay strong and present for my boys. The day after, because we had a big camping trip. And I was like, how do I leave? How do I leave now? But no, I need to do it with my boys. I need to go take care of them. Well, I failed at that. I completely imploded, breaking down in Big Bear. I simply couldn't hold it together. I cried on the way up. I cried on the one night that I thought we slept. And then this little piggy cried all the way home. From numerous days at the first hospital, I took a picture of his hand and mine, this glow of light emanating between us from the monitor on his finger. And it gave me hope, this little beacon of red. And I had that in my phone. And I came across a song called Black Tables, and I played that on repeat incessantly, like incessantly. Like if it was a record, I would have needed 50 of them because it would have been worn down. But that gave me hope too. Part of the lyrics were, when in the life in your eyes once black, things return, you've come back. With your body and mind restored, it's good to see you once more. And I held on to those words. And then life throws you another reason, or a season as I call it. I was already off the bike, admittedly so, there's pretty obvious reasons. And then one afternoon with the boys, I just doing some stupid shit, I tore a disc in my back, which was just a couple months after Nick's accident. And I wasn't able to ride. And it was tough, but it gave me a reason to actually just sit with it and contemplate and be there. With myself, and with family, and with friends at times. I remember the boys. I don't know which one, I don't know if that's what it was. But they literally like pushed on my side and they're like, wow, Dad, you've changed. Because I gained weight. It's like, oh wow, hey, I'm not riding. It was, you know, those fun little things that I remember. And then a little gentle usher back a year later from Tara and Josh and Blake. Do you want to ride? I said, yeah, sure, I guess, I think, maybe, I'll try. And we rode up the LA River, which was fresh and flowing again, it was winter. And then it started raining again. And it was like a baptism, and I knew I was back. And I knew I needed to get back on the bike. For everyone. There's a lot more in the middle, and that will remain part of my story, and our story, of life and living, is just humans being. So slow forward, and this one is very recent, and that's getting the call of Nick's last hours. And I know this is silly, but how the hell do you have FOMO for knowing someone's going to pass away? But I didn't want to miss that moment. I was in New York. I couldn't be there. I got home that night, and it was, you know, I came the next day. And we just sat. It was so quiet, so peaceful, so gracious. It's more than words. There's just words that don't describe those times. And there's words that don't describe this group. This group. There's a lot of us. Thanks, Hams, if you're watching this in London. or if you see this later, thanks for introducing me to Mick and the Fireflies and a jersey that makes me feel like I'm Superman when I put it on. I recently saw a picture. Somebody just pointed it out to me, actually. It was on screen when I wasn't wearing that jersey because I hadn't ridden a tour, to speak. And I wouldn't wear one until I rode the tour. And then when I rode the tour, I'd never taken it off. I actually ditched every jersey I had, and I won't wear anything else with this jersey. It means that much. And I also know that we all drive around, and when you see a cyclist, we're like, oh, is that one of us? And it's in a red jersey. Is it? And who is it? And that feeling is so amazing. Thanks, Mick, for being you, with style and grace, for helping me, for helping us. You will always be a creative powerhouse on so many levels. I even love The Office because it was perfectly disorganized in a way that everything could be found. Not a mess at all. Just so much there with meaning and focus and story. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Lucy, for making these difficult decisions and having unwavering strength through it all, for allowing yourselves to be helped, and bringing so many of us together because it mattered, and it still does. We're all here. I will never leave the Fireflies until I ride with all my sons in the same way that Lucy rode with us. And you want to know one of the best things is still learning about him, hearing the stories, because we all have these different moments. And last night it was like poring over these words. And we got, the stepping out. I was just listening to his music and his voice. I knew I had to go to sleep, and I didn't want to. I just burned the midnight oil again, just wanting to be with him. I don't ride as much, but a few weeks ago I did. I rode with Josh, and I texted him the next morning, kind of like in my tan lines. Because it wasn't Nick, it was those things that just reminded me so much of these little things that just pull it together, that we all aspire to. How do you want to aspire to something so simple, a tan line? Okay, I'll do it. I don't know where this road takes us, but I'm happy to have shared a lane with many of you and look forward to many more petals in the future. For Mick and for the Fireflies, for the Firefleas, the next generation, which maybe not as young as they were, but there's a whole new plethora of people, which is fucking awesome. And anyone else in between that we can inspire and make the smallest difference in someone's life, because he, Mick, has made such a massive impact on life. Now I know the pandemic is still floating around in the back of our heads. And even with that, I'm going to ask you to grab the hand of the person next to you, or across from you, or in front of you or behind you. And use as if you're contemplating if you're going to do it or not. My boys know this like the back of their hands, because of all the things that I say, and me constantly telling them, are you helping or are you hurting? And as now you are all holding hands, be thankful, smile, and know that you were helped, just like Mick did. Godspeed, good ways, your humble domestique Mick.
Hi, I'm Sam. I first slept with Mick in 2011. It was 2010, I can't remember, it was so good. We were roommates on the Fireflies tour, and we happened to bunk together. Don't remember Pretty amazing day, pretty surreal, incredible to see all these amazing people here. I drove today listening to Steel Pulse, got a good cry in the way, had a great ride with friends, and I was riding with Joe, and we were meeting each other. I had always heard about Joe, and I knew how fond Mick was of Joe, and that conversation was very similar to all the conversations I had with Mick, where we started talking about life, and we started talking about business, and then we started talking about the amazing connections that come from bringing people and ideas together, and how good Mick was at that, and how inspiring that was. And 5 minutes later, we crashed right through. Totally surreal. Now here, looking at all these amazing people, listening to very eloquent speakers, Michael, holy cow, that was amazing. I'll try to make it quick. Michael and I first met back in 2010 thanks to Ben Hampshire, similar to Rainey. We got along straight away. Turns out Michael and I had a lot in common. We were both very handsome. We were married to amazing women. We both had 3 girls. We were girl dads. What's that? Both? Yeah, both our wives named Jill. Different spelling. We both had small businesses. We loved our families. We loved bikes, music, design, architecture, photography, books, soccer, and fashion. I mean, holy cow. Over the years, we spent a lot of time together, both on and off the bike. We jumped on the Firefly train together. We roomed together on tours. And like a lot of us here, it changed our lives. Mick loved it all. With my last name being Swisher and being at the end of the alphabet, of course, you've heard all these entertaining and often hilarious stories around Mick and the Fireflies. We know about Mick's profound contributions to the Firefly family. Looking back on it, 2012 especially, that time was magic. Weekly ride leadership, new rider solicitation, jersey, design, coffees, dinners, Xmas parties, Fireflies nights at Bike Effect, and track days at the Velodrome. The list was endless of the things that Mick brought to the family. While the Fly family was super important to us both, it was the time spent off the bike that I loved the most. As we know, there was so much more to him, especially for me. A stage or two ahead of me in life, Michael became a beautiful combination of father figure, brother, and friend. Listening to him was a beautiful thing. His experience, his curiosity, his creativity, his unflinching love and support of his family was both captivating and inspiring. He was always connecting and bringing people together. He always was reminding and inviting me into his life, introducing me to his friends like John, Douglas Furr, Tom and Deborah, incredible. Tony Manzella, my brother from another mother. Just an incredible group of people. Again, super inspiring. He was always saying things to me like, Lucy at a soccer game, or come see the Xanadu show with Paul Revere. You and Jill should come to Jill's Taboo hair care holiday party. Or send your kids to Lily's summer camp if you don't already have plans. Your kids will love it. It looks pretty great. Or please review Jared's CV, my son-in-law. Then go find him a job. Or more profound moments that I can totally relate to, like Maudie is growing up too fast, and I'm scared I'll lose her. Afternoons spent in his office on Olympic or Tacos Por Favor, early Sunday dinners at Nook, afternoons at Arcana, concerts at the Hollywood Bowl, Florence and the Machine, Herbie Hancock, Santana, Cindy Blackman, or Aaron Neville, spirited progressive or Prosecco-infused conversations around the fire pit, or invitations to 2012 Otis report on creative economy in Los Angeles region. He could talk about anything, and oftentimes did, but he could also actively listen and follow up with questions and insights. He was there for me, and hopefully I for him, in ways that few people have or ever will be. I miss him terribly and always will. Things have been super strange, different and quiet for a lot of us since 2014. Being on the bike has changed for me since then too, but today we're here to honor and celebrate the man, mentor, husband, father, fly, and friend. He would have loved this. So allow me to share with you one of his classic emails. And then oh yeah, that one has pictures. He said, "Great ride today, everybody. We do have a great group now. Always fun, but usually tough rides. Heaven. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And if I don't see you through the week, I'll see you through the week."
So now I'm going to move right along to our last speakers, who are my and minor mix amazing kids.
Lucian?
Oh.
Okay, I'm just gonna stick to my script for what I wrote, because otherwise it's not, it's useless. My stepdad Michael, which sounds very strange because he was always Mikey to me, was someone who always made things seem so magical and creative. I remember going to the house in Venice, 222, even then the universe communicating a number of alignment, of union, of merging. I remember that there was a pond with a stone path over it and koi fish in the water below, and thinking how cool and otherworldly that seemed. And later, when I started to grow up and understand the mysteries of the universe, once again, a sign of Mikey, a Pisces, the sign of the fish. I didn't know then how much he and the ocean and the rainbow fish of the Caribbean, where he taught me to snorkel, I didn't know how much a part of my life they would become. He taught me so many things and provided me with so many things as well. But the most treasured of these things is the family he gave me. I wasn't born into a family unit the way my siblings were, and he gave me them. I didn't know you could feel love for another human that deeply until my first baby sister, Bonnie, was born. My love was deepened further when my youngest sibling, Lucian, came into the world not long after. He gave me Santa Claus and reindeer on the roof and a team of elves that built an entire playground overnight like real magic. He gave me family Christmas cards with impeccable fonts and design. He taught me how to make sure you always correctly format something, because the presentation of the words is just as important as the words themselves. The last time I saw him in March, just after his birthday, it was Pisces season at the magical house by the ocean. Now the house was once more transformed by magic into a fully functioning hospice and Airbnb. And as I stood where the koi fish used to be, I finally allowed myself to cry for the first time since I had been back home. I walked into the house to say my goodbyes, But how can you ever have enough words to truly say goodbye? And he was so far away, and my heart sank. But then I remembered the previous evening I had been holding in my tears, holding back the emotions that were clawing at me. And he looked at me and he quietly said, "Don't be so sad, silly." But he didn't mean silly like a fool. He had mixed up my name, Lily, for the word silly. And the divine poetry of the moment allowed me to release him. Only I could have known what he really meant, and that's real magic. So firstly, I just wanted to start by saying thank you to you all for coming today. To celebrate. Just to say thank you. Come to celebrate my amazing dad. And just that it's incredible to see everyone here, everyone with all of their unique connections to him. And also thank you to everyone who helped organize today. And yeah, I think it's just very obvious that our family has probably the most, in my opinion, amazing unit around us of friends and family. When I think about my dad, I think about how every time I visited recently, he would smile immediately when I walked into the room. That's what I'm most grateful for. The love he had for me. I feel so lucky to have felt and still feel so loved and supported by him. My dad has always been my biggest fan, and he always encouraged myself and Lily and Lucian to delve deeply into whatever our passions were. Mine was always art, something we have in common. His encouragement for art started when I was young. He always had notepads and colored pencils in the car so we could draw wherever we went. If we were on holiday, we would sit and draw the places we were staying together. The walls of his office at PhD were always covered in drawings Lucian and I had done when we went to work with him. When I was older, before I applied to the arts high school I went to, my dad and I took life drawing classes together every week. He was such a naturally talented artist with such a distinctive style, one I could only hope to come close to. I cherish these connections we have, and I know when I have kids, these memories will guide and shape the way I raise them. My dad told me once that when he was on his bike at the bottom of a hard climb, he would picture my mom, Lily, Lucian, and I at the top of the hill cheering him on. It's hard to make sense of and process this great loss of my dad. But when I'm at the end of a hard run, a sport he also loved doing, I can always seem to run faster, picturing him cheering me on from the end of the road. Which is true. I know that constant, unwavering love and support that I can still feel will stay with me and keep me going.
Just one pee. I didn't know we were going to stand up all together. Sorry, everybody. That seemed very dramatic. Okay. When I have sat down numerous times to write this, I kept thinking, I wish I had written something like this 8 years ago. That's, my girlfriend makes fun of me because I do a dance when I'm trying not to cry. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay. For me, that was in a large part when I lost my dad, and I struggled to find a connection with him again. When I have been remembering and writing about it all, there has been a fear that I may not remember that time as clearly anymore. I'm going to talk about what has always stuck with me. I remember him at my soccer games from when I was 3 to 12 on the touchline cheering us on, and then back home shouting at the TV, watching Spurs play. Somehow the energy was the same for these two things. I remember sitting in the back seat of his yellow Land Rover, which I have to say, when we were driving over here, I haven't seen one of those in a really long time, but we were driving here and we saw one, so that was, yeah, that was quite cool.
And the license plate
was yeah, I remember sitting in the back seat of his yellow Land Rover, eating Cheerios out of his sandwich bag, an iconic snack he invented, and listening to Roald Dahl audiobooks on tape. Later on, I remember sitting in the passenger seat navigating from my school in the Palisades to my track cycling classes at the velodrome in Carson during rush hour. By then, we would be listening to the longest running British soap, The Archers. Thanks to him, I imagine I was the only 14-year-old in America who knew the trials and tribulations of the residents of the fictional village of Ambridge. Yeah. I remember seeing him in his cycling kit and techie heart rate monitor around his chest on Sunday mornings after his rides, and remember running out to the car so I could sit on the saddle of his Colnago road bike with my arm around yeah, so I could sit on the saddle of his Colnago road bike with my arm around his shoulder while he wheeled it to the door. I was so envious, and eventually, when I was 12, I got my first road bike and could finally go out and ride as well. I remember this time together the most. Yeah, I remember this time together the most, and with unwavering fondness. I was not academic in the traditional sense, and he helped me to discover place where I could challenge myself in a different way. Road cycling was his happy place, and with him showing me each little part of it that he found so freeing and beautiful, it soon became mine too. I was and continued to be so inspired by how he captained the Fireflies and made sure that that community remained strong year-round. My dad never had any expectations of what being a girl or being his daughter. Yeah, what being his daughter had to mean. I had a modeling casting when I was about 8, and my mum, whose territory this usually was, wasn't around to get me ready and take me to it. The prompt they set for my outfit was punk, so immediately he got to work transforming his 8-year-old kid into a 70s British punk. I looked so different from all the other kids. There was like a tie. It was strange. Of course, though, I was exuding confidence in this look and got the job. But when the casting people called my agents, they asked for Luke. He had just followed my personal style when dressing me up, and so they thought I was a boy. I was obviously over the moon because it meant I didn't have to wear girls' clothes for the shoot like I had before. He was my first example of how masculinity could mean being emotional and tender and very concerned with your attire and haircut. I'm so grateful for the parts of him that I continue to carry in me now as an adult. I'm constantly reminded of this when I'm playing football or soccer, cycling around southeast London, or listening to music I know he would love. It is an everlasting gift that I still get to see the world in some ways through his eyes.
Well, I won't say any more words because I've been there a long time. I was like, it's going to take an hour. Just, you know, but I mean, I'm grateful that you've stuck with it. But I have been, like, some people are wedding singers. I'm actually a funeral singer. I've sung at probably at least 8 funerals. Family members, friends of friends. So, of course, I have to sing at my husband's memorial. But I usually would sing a cappella, but to make it nicer for you guys, I got my friend Caitlin to come and help me out. I used to do musical theatre with Caitlin's mum, and then we met in choir, and now we're fine friends, and I'm her hairdresser, although she's deeply in need. And I've got so much going on in my hair, I gotta do it. Can we hear this? So hopefully we'll end on a brighter note, as long as I don't break into tears. That goes all horribly wrong. Anyway, this one's for you, Mick, my honey. As around us up the night, don't you holding good start. And the rosebuds now are blooming early May. Just as hate knows love's cure, you can rest your mind assured that I'll be loving you always. As now can't reveal the mystery of tomorrow, but in passing we'll grow older every day. Just as all is born is new, you know what I say is true, that I'll be loving you always.
Until the rainbow brings the stars out in the sky.
Always.
Until the ocean covers every mountain high.
Always.
Until the dolphin flies and parrots fill the sea.
Always.
Dream of life and life becomes a dream.
Did you know true love asks for nothing? Acceptance is a way to pay. Did you know that life has given love a guarantee to last forever and another day? As today I know I'm living for tomorrow. Could make me the past, but that I mustn't fear. 'Cause I know deep in my mind the love of me I've left behind, and I'll be loving you always.
The day is night and night becomes the day.
Always.
Until the trees and seas drift up and fly away.
Always.
The day that daytime is for.
Always.
Until the day that is the day that I'm no more.
We all know sometimes our days and troubles can make you wish you were born in another time and space. But you can bet your lifetimes that and twice it's double. That God knew exactly where He had wanted you to be placed. So make sure when you say you're in it but not of it, you're not helping to make this place sometimes called hell. Change your words into truth and then change those truths into love. And maybe our children, grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren will tell. I'll be loving you till the rainbow was the stars out in the sky. Loving you until the ocean covers every mountain high. Until the dolphin flies and parrots live at sea. Until we dream of life and life becomes a dream.
Until the day is night and night becomes the day.
I'll be loving you
Seas just up and fly away.
always.
The day that daytime is for.
I'll be loving you
Until the day
forever.
that it's the day that I'm no more.
I'll be loving you forever. Always.
If you wanted to grab food and go outside, I know it's still already a long afternoon, so I can whatever. We have tables set outside if you want to mingle out there, grab food, drink, and thank you so much for your patience, everybody.
Thank you.